The moment Han Li set foot into Devilfall Valley, the heavens fell silent. No wind stirred. No birds cried. Even spiritual qi seemed to recoil as if the land itself were holding its breath. Ancient scars torn into space still lingered unseen, waiting patiently for careless souls to stray too close. Here luck was meaningless, strength was never enough, and a single misstep meant erasure body, soul, and fate alike. This was not a place meant for the living. Yet countless cultivators had come, drawn by whispers of ancient treasures and immortal legacies. Unaware that Devilfall Valley did not test ambition, it devoured it. And among them, Han Li advanced alone, knowing full well that in this valley, survival itself was already a miracle. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Just like the interim cave residence Han Li had once constructed for himself, Elder Lu of the Heaven Peak sect resided in a similarly fashioned dwelling. After passing through a stone passageway stretching nearly 60 meters, Han Li arrived at the main hall of the cave residence. The chamber was over 20 meters wide, hewn entirely from stone, solemn and austere. Inside, two figures were already waiting, an elderly man clad in grey robes with a kindly countenance, and a middle-aged man wearing a tall ceremonial hat. The grey-robed elder smiled faintly and spoke first. "Fellow Taoist Han, you have finally arrived." Marquis Nanlong let out a bitter chuckle, though a trace of relief flickered across his face. "Brother Han, you truly made us wait. For an entire month we sent people everywhere in search of you. Unfortunately, you were hidden far too well. We couldn't even find a single trace. At one point we even thought you had changed your mind." Han Li sighed softly and replied with a helpless smile, "You weren't exactly easy to find either. Your residence was exceedingly well concealed. Not long ago, I had entered closed-door cultivation for a period of time, so it was only natural that you couldn't locate me." After Han Li took his seat, Marquis Nanlong suddenly fixed him with an odd expression. "Brother Han's reputation now shines as brightly as the sun. Not only did you display astonishing prowess in the border battle, but I also heard you personally slew a mid-nascent soul elder of a Jin Empire devil sect. You must have gone to great lengths to conceal your true strength." Unwilling to reveal too much, Han Li merely shook his head and answered vaguely, "It isn't as though Brother Nanlong has never seen my abilities before. If I truly possessed such heaven-defying power, I wouldn't have been forced to flee the Mulan Plains in such a sorry state. My current reputation is nothing more than a matter of fortune. In fact, it is also due to fortune that I stand before you today." Elder Lu and Marquis Nanlong exchanged glances, doubt evident in their eyes. With their spiritual senses, they could clearly discern that Han Li's cultivation was only at the early nascent soul stage. They knew he was no ordinary cultivator, yet it was still difficult to believe that he had truly slain a devil cultivator at the peak of mid-nascent soul. Nevertheless, the rumors surrounding Han Li's feats had spread far and wide, leaving even these two mid-nascent soul cultivators deeply perplexed. Marquis Nanlong laughed dryly, his tone tinged with irony. "Haha, fellow Taoist Han is far too modest. To be frank, the greater your abilities, the better it will be for us once we enter Devilfall Valley. We very much look forward to witnessing the strength of a cultivator comparable to the three great heavenly south cultivators." Han Li merely smiled faintly and said nothing more clearly, unwilling to pursue the matter further. At that moment, Elder Lu spoke in a solemn voice. "Brother Han, since you have come to us, it seems you have already given our proposal some thought. Are you willing to enter the valley with us and jointly slay the ancient flame toad?" As the old man finished speaking, Marquis Nanlong also fixed his gaze upon Han Li, his expression grave. "I have no desire to let such a rare opportunity slip away," Han Li replied calmly. "However, before making my decision, there is one matter I must clarify. How will the treasures found among the remains of ancient cultivators be divided? If your answer is satisfactory, I am willing to take the risk and embark on this journey." Though he was already determined to enter Devilfall Valley regardless, Hanli naturally had no intention of revealing his true thoughts or placing himself at a disadvantage during negotiations. It was unclear how much the two had discussed beforehand, but Elder Lu answered without hesitation. If we are able to successfully obtain the treasures, how about we divide them evenly? Hanli did not respond immediately, nor did he show any dissatisfaction. Instead, he pondered silently for a moment before nodding. That is fair. Without the guidance of you two, I would not be able to penetrate deeply into the valley, nor locate the ancient flame toad. However, I still have one additional condition that I hope you will agree to. Please, fellow Taoist Han, speak freely, Elder Lu replied at once. Marquis Nanlong's expression shifted slightly as he stared at Han Li in silence. I require the inner core of the ancient flame, Toad Han Li said casually, as though he were asking for something of little consequence. It is of use to me. Elder Lu immediately nodded. That will not be a problem. After all, we will be relying on you to slay the beast. It is only proper that you receive its inner core. Marquis Nanlong's expression visibly relaxed. Indeed, even if fellow Taoist Han hadn't mentioned it, we would have given the core to you regardless. Hearing this, Han Li smiled. Since both of you are in agreement, I will not press the matter further and appear greedy. I accept. I will enter Devilfall Valley alongside the two of you. With fellow Taoist Han accompanying us, the acquisition of the treasures will surely go smoothly, Elder Lu said with clear delight. We will be relying on you, Brother Han, Marquis Nanlong added eagerly. Unaffected by their praise, Han Li merely smiled. You flatter me too much. I am well aware that the two of you will take the lead within the valley. Given my cultivation, I will only serve as support. In truth, only through our combined efforts can we hope to emerge unscathed. That is only natural, Marquis Nanlong replied. Since we sought out fellow Taoist Han for cooperation, we trust you completely. If those treacherous villains from the Ghost Spirit sect had managed to obtain the yin-yang ring, I would have killed them on the spot. As he spoke of the Ghost Spirit sect, Marquis Nanlong clenched his teeth, hatred flashing through his eyes. It was clear that the injuries he had suffered in their previous encounter were no trivial matter. Hanli could not help but glance at Marquis Nanlong once more. Though he appeared outwardly well, it was impossible to know how much of his vitality he had truly recovered. Speaking of the Ghost Spirit sect, Hanli asked, Do the two of you know what method they are using to enter the valley? What is your assessment of it? Marquis Nanlong let out a cold chuckle, a peculiar expression crossing his face. What is there to say? We merely disrupted their attempt to monopolize the valley's treasures. With more cultivators entering, our tracks will be better concealed, and the Ghost Spirit sect will be unable to encircle us. Hanli raised an eyebrow slightly. From what you're saying, does that mean the two of you deliberately leaked the information that the Ghost Spirit sect possessed a method to enter Devilfall Valley? Marquis Nanlong's face darkened. Indeed, before traveling to the Mulan Plains, I already knew the Ghost Spirit sect was researching a way into Devilfall Valley. Since they have openly turned hostile toward me, I see no reason to show them courtesy. Hanli offered no opinion, merely nodding as his thoughts drifted elsewhere. Elder Lu frowned and spoke slowly. However, I did not expect the Ghost Spirit sect to openly distribute Devilfall medallions, selling them in limited quantities to various sects. In doing so, they ensured that they would remain the largest force entering the valley. I fear they intend to use those cultivators to scout the way for them. While the treasures will no longer be theirs alone, the risks they face will be greatly reduced. Hanli stroked his chin and smiled faintly. There is no such thing as a perfect plan in this world. Your actions have brought us more benefit than harm. I suspect the Ghost Spirit sect's elders are grinding their teeth in fury. Marquis Nanlong's spirits were clearly lifted. Fellow Taoist Han speaks the truth. For now, the Ghost Spirit sect has suffered a setback. As for the rest of my hatred, I will settle it after emerging from the valley. The three continued their discussion, carefully analyzing the Ghost Spirit sect's movements and finalizing the arrangements for entering Devilfall Valley. 7 days later, the dense miasma shrouding the myriad Link Mountains had nearly dissipated. Cultivators who had been lying low in the surrounding regions suddenly appeared in great numbers, converging upon Devilfall Valley one after another. There were also those of lower cultivation, as well as cultivators unwilling to brave the valley itself, who took advantage of the weakened miasma to search the mountains for spirit beasts and medicinal herbs. Devilfall Valley lay in the northwestern region of the myriad Link Mountains, spanning tens of thousands of kilometers. The ancient battle between devil cultivators had left the valley and the surrounding heavens layered with terrifying, ancient restrictions. These formations overlapped one another, forming an almost impenetrable barrier. Only a single area was free of such restrictions, the entrance to Devilfall Valley. It was roughly 300 meters wide, gradually narrowing as it extended tens of kilometers inward. Though once easily traversed, the aftermath of the ancient battles had utterly ravaged the passage, filling it densely with spatial rifts. Some of these rifts emitted blinding white light, while others were dim or entirely invisible. Their sizes varied greatly, some only a few inches wide, others stretching dozens of meters across, large enough to swallow scores of people in an instant. Even the smallest rifts were like invisible blades suspended in the air, lethally sharp. Most terrifying of all, these spatial rifts drifted over time, appearing and vanishing without warning, following no discernible pattern. Because of these fearsome spatial tiers, almost no cultivator had ever emerged from the valley alive. Countless nascent soul eccentrics had met their end within it. Devilfall Valley's reputation as the most dangerous place in the heavenly south was owed largely to these spatial rifts. Yet this time would be different. According to the Ghost Spirit sect, there now existed a method to safely enter the valley, a revelation that shook the entire heavenly south. Greed flared in the hearts of countless cultivators, and the several hundred Devilfall medallions were swiftly claimed. As for those unable to obtain a medallion, they could only linger near the entrance, harboring faint hopes of somehow slipping into the valley amidst the chaos. Vines densely carpeted the surroundings of a secluded valley as a sphere of white light streaked toward it. Within that radiance sat a beautiful woman clad in green robes, seated upright atop a snow-white spirit bird whose feathers shimmered faintly. In the blink of an eye, the spirit bird arrived above the small valley. Folding its wings, it plunged downward toward the tangled mass of vines below. The woman calmly raised her hand and sent a spell seal flying downward. Instantly, emerald light surged through the air, causing the entire scene to tremble. The thick vines vanished without a trace, revealing a translucent green light barrier beneath them. The woman dismounted from the bird, and with a flash of white light vanished straight through the barrier. As the barrier faded, 6 cultivators dressed entirely in green were revealed. They sat around a 5-pointed spell formation, roughly 20 meters wide, positioned at the entrance of the small valley. One cultivator sat cross-legged at each point of the formation, their bodies motionless as streams of spiritual light flickered across the formation's lines. At the very center sat a long-bearded old man, his eyes closed in deep concentration. Suddenly, the old man opened his eyes and lifted his gaze toward the sky. A beam of white light was slowly descending toward them. Moments later, the green-robed woman reappeared before him. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she respectfully cupped her fists and bowed. Lowering her head, she spoke with reverence. "This disciple greets her martial senior. The miasma over the mountain range has completely dissipated. Many cultivators have already gathered before Devilfall Valley." The long-bearded old man stroked his beard and asked slowly, "Has the Ghost Spirit sect made any moves yet?" After a brief pause, the woman replied cautiously, "Aside from a few individuals, the majority of the Ghost Spirit sect has yet to take action." The old man snorted softly. "If the Ghost Spirit sect remains still, then we shall not act rashly either. As long as we keep a close watch on their elders, there will be no unexpected danger. Marshal Nice Han continue monitoring their movements. Should there be any change, report immediately." "Yes." The green-robed woman accepted the order without hesitation. After bowing once more, she mounted the spirit bird and departed in a streak of light. The old man watched her leave until her figure disappeared into the distance. A sharp glint flashed briefly through his eyes as he sank into contemplation. Meanwhile, the 5 cultivators seated around the spell formation remained completely unmoved by her arrival and departure. They sat as still as wooden statues, their breathing imperceptible. The long-bearded old man found nothing unusual about this and slowly closed his eyes once more. Atop a towering mountain peak, a middle-aged Taoist priest, clad in grey robes, stood upon a massive boulder. Fierce winds howled around him, tugging at his robes as he squinted toward the direction of Devilfall Valley. Turning his head, he glanced at the 2 sinister-looking puppets beside him, a trace of satisfaction flickering across his face. With these 2 ancient, nascent soul-level puppets, he muttered, "This journey to Devilfall Valley will surely yield an immense harvest." As he spoke, the Taoist priest raised his arm and struck both puppets with a spell seal. Instantly, the 2 puppets rapidly shrank and shot straight into his sleeve. Without another word, he tore through the sky toward Devilfall Valley, transforming into a streak of red light. Elsewhere in the heavens, 3 streaks of light flew in formation, also heading toward Devilfall Valley. If Han Li were present, he would have been greatly startled, for he would recognize 2 of the figures among them. One was Ancestor Lingu of Yellow Maple Valley, the sallow-faced old man dressed in yellow robes. At his side flew a pale, white-robed woman with an icy expression, the Grand Elder of the Masked Moon Sect and the senior martial sister of Nangonguan. The third was an unfamiliar old man with steep brows and a prominent lion-like nose. The trio traveled in absolute silence, swiftly vanishing into distant specks of light that faded without a trace. At the same time, cultivators began appearing in great numbers near the Myriad Link Mountains, each one brimming with confidence in their own abilities. By now, Han Li had already arrived near Devilfall Valley. He sat atop a low mound several kilometers from the entrance, his gaze fixed thoughtfully in that direction. Extending his spiritual sense, Han Li probed the surrounding area within a radius of several dozen kilometers. He discovered that over 1,000 cultivators had already gathered, with many nascent soul eccentrics hidden among them. While none could compare to the 3 great Heavenly South cultivators, each was an exceptional figure possessing strange and troublesome secret techniques. Han Li was far from arrogant enough to believe he had nothing to fear, simply because these cultivators fell short of the 3 great Heavenly South cultivators or the Mulan Divine Sages. Within Devilfall Valley, a single misstep would be enough to cost him his life. As he pondered this, Han Li occasionally examined the entrance to Devilfall Valley. If not for the presence of so many cultivators, he would never have believed that such an ordinary mountain opening marked the entrance to the infamous valley. Above it, however, roiling grey clouds churned violently, surging with dense spiritual ki. The sight carried an ominous chill that sent unease through all who beheld it. From the outside, the entrance appeared to be no more than 30 meters wide. Yet when Han Li attempted to probe it with his spiritual sense, he could only see 300 meters inside before a powerful restriction abruptly blocked his perception. Beyond that point, he was unable to witness the rumored spatial tiers for himself. Although he could have forcibly pierced the restriction with his spiritual sense, Han Li hesitated. In a place as perilous as Devilfall Valley, such recklessness could invite disaster. He cautiously withdrew his spiritual sense and soon afterwards sat cross-legged upon the mound, closing his eyes. Time passed slowly. Half a day later, as the number of gathered cultivators continued to increase, Han Li suddenly sensed several familiar auras. After a brief moment of thought, he recognized them, and his brows furrowed. At that moment, a voice nearby cried out in alarm, "The Mulan have arrived." The Mulan spell warriors also intend to seek treasures in Devilfall Valley. A wave of commotion erupted at the entrance. Han Li's heart stirred. Opening his eyes, he saw a peculiar flying carriage approaching. Its body was round and more than 60 meters long, shimmering with silvery light. Talisman characters were densely engraved across its surface. Over a dozen cultivators clad in Mulan robes stood atop it, unmistakably Mulan spell warriors. Hanli stared in astonishment. Though he had heard rumors of the Mulan's arrival, he had never truly believed them. After all, while peace had been established between the Heavenly South and the Mulan, the border war had inflicted heavy losses on both sides. Deep-seated hatred still lingered among many sects, and such enmity would not dissipate without the passage of several hundred years. Under such circumstances, it was nearly inconceivable that the Mulan would dare venture so deeply into the heart of the Heavenly South to seek treasures in Devilfall Valley. Did they truly have no fear of being ambushed by vengeful cultivators? As these thoughts crossed Han Li's mind, the massive carriage arrived above the entrance to Devilfall Valley, fully revealing the spell warriors aboard. Han Li glanced at the two figures leading them and immediately understood. With those two in command, there was little to fear from ordinary cultivators. What puzzled him instead was why the three great Heavenly South cultivators would permit their entry. The two leading spell warriors were Divine Sage Zhong, who carried a scholarly air, and the woman surnamed Le the Guardian of the Ancient Lantern. The flying carriage descended upon a small mountain not far from Han Li. After the spell warriors disembarked, Spell Warrior Lu struck the carriage with a spell seal, causing it to rapidly shrink in size. The cultivators gathered near the entrance stared in shock, no less astonished than Han Li himself. Just as hostile and wary gazes were fixed upon the Mulan, brilliant light suddenly flared on the horizon. More than 100 streaks of light shot toward Devilfall Valley. "It's the Ghost Spirit Sect." Cries rang out as the crowd recognized them. Attention immediately shifted skyward. Hanli also lifted his gaze, releasing a cold snort. The approaching lights were not particularly fast. They descended calmly, stopping roughly 300 meters from the valley entrance. As the lights dissipated, over 100 cultivators clad in black were revealed Ghost Spirit Sect members without exception. Among the three figures leading them, Han Li's gaze fixed on one in particular. Standing to the left was Wang Tiangu, the Ghost Spirit Sect's deputy sect master. Han Li's heart stirred. Sweeping his gaze through the crowd, he soon spotted Wang Chan and Yan Ruyan. Wang Chan appeared healthy and intact, all his limbs present. Yan Ruyan, however, looked somewhat pale and sallow. Could it be that the Yin Devil execution failed to injure him? Or did he simply restore his limb and conceal it? Thoughts flashed rapidly through Han Li's mind, yet he found no immediate answer. Still, given Han Li's current strength and reputation, Wang Chan no longer posed any threat. His attention quickly shifted to the other two nascent soul cultivators at the forefront. The one in the center was a middle-aged man wearing wide robes. His expression was severe, carrying an unmistakable air of authority that marked him as the leader at a glance. To his right stood an old man with a pale complexion, salt and pepper hair, piercing eyes, and a sinister aura that clung to him like shadow. Though both were nascent soul cultivators, they appeared unfamiliar to Han Li, as if they had not participated in the border war. However, the old man's mid-nascent soul cultivation immediately drew Han Li's attention. To Han Li's surprise, Taoist Shattered Soul of the Ghost Spirit Sect had not appeared. Instead, this unfamiliar old man had come in his place. Even for a sect as vast as the Ghost Spirit Sect, mobilizing three nascent soul cultivators was an unmistakable display of strength. Yet considering they were attempting to preside over a place as perilous as Devilfall Valley, it still felt somewhat insufficient. Could it be that the Ghost Spirit Sect had made additional preparations behind the scenes? As Han Li pondered this, the Ghost Spirit Sect cultivators suddenly scattered around the entrance to the valley, moving swiftly and methodically as they began setting up an enormous spell formation. The surrounding cultivators did not interfere, choosing instead to observe from a distance. As for the Mulan spell warriors, they gathered together as well. While their leaders, the scholarly man surnamed Zhong and spell warrior Lu, conversed in low voices, Han Li watched the developing formation with calm eyes and an unchanging expression. Yet after a brief moment, his gaze shifted, and he looked skyward in surprise. Suddenly light flashed in the distance. A blinding streak of white light tore across the heavens like a bolt of lightning, scattering clouds in its wake and carrying with it an overwhelming momentum. The shocking sight immediately drew the attention of all present. In the blink of an eye, the white light arrived above the entrance to Devilfall Valley. As it faded, it revealed an azure-robed old man with an expressionless face. Wei Wuya, he's here as well. Could it be that the Nine Nations Union is also determined to seize the treasures of Devilfall Valley? An uproar erupted among the gathered cultivators as they recognized the old man. What astonished them even more, however, was the sight of Wei Wuya slowly descending directly in front of the Ghost Spirit Sect. When the middle-aged Ghost Spirit Sect elder with the unfriendly countenance saw this, he smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. "Brother Wei, you have finally arrived. I thought you might have been delayed by other matters. Had that been the case, we would have had no choice but to postpone our entry into the valley." Wei Wuya ignored the man's smile entirely and replied coldly, "Since I have already made an agreement with fellow Taoist Wang, I will not change my mind lightly. However, it would be best for you to speak honestly. If the valley does not contain the items you described, do not blame me for turning hostile." Given the long-standing enmity between the Nine Nations Union and the Devil Dao, his attitude came as no surprise. "Rest assured, fellow Taoist," the middle-aged man replied smoothly. "I would not dare deceive you." The surrounding cultivators watched in stunned disbelief. Wei Wuya, the Grand Elder of the Nine Nations Union, was openly cooperating with the Devil Dao. Had they not witnessed it with their own eyes, they would never have believed such a thing possible. Han Li frowned deeply at the sight. If a conflict were to erupt with the Ghost Spirit Sect inside Devilfall Valley, his only option would be to flee, especially now that Wei Wuya stood on their side. This development lay entirely outside his expectations. Lost in thought, Han Li could not help but glance toward the scholarly man, surnamed Zhong. If no other late nascent soul cultivators entered Devilfall Valley, then these two would possess the greatest cultivation bases present. The Mulan Divine Sage stood calmly with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed upon Wei Wuya, his thoughts inscrutable. Spell Warrior. Lei, on the other hand, appeared visibly surprised by Wei Wuya's arrival. Though Wei Wuya's presence had shocked many, attention soon returned to the Ghost Spirit Sect disciples as they continued constructing the spell formation. Half a day later, the formation had expanded to over 300 meters in diameter. As Han Li observed its structure, his expression gradually shifted into one of profound bewilderment. The formation resembled a fragment of an ancient transportation formation he had once studied, yet several sections had been simplified while others had grown more intricate. It was clear that the formation had undergone extensive modification. Han Li narrowed his eyes and stared at it in silence. Despite his considerable attainments in spell formations, he could not unravel its mysteries in such a short time. All he could do was frown thoughtfully. 2 hours later, the spell formation was finally completed. Ghost Spirit Sect disciples began placing various mid-grade spirit stones along its perimeter. At that moment, Wang Tiangu, who had been standing to the side, suddenly appeared at the very center of the formation in a blur. Reaching into his storage pouch, he withdrew a jade box. The other two Ghost Spirit Sect elders showed no surprise at Wang Tiangu's actions. Wang Tiang opened the jade box, revealing a golden yellow spirit stone. The stone gleamed brilliantly, releasing a surge of astonishing spiritual qi the instant it was exposed. A high-grade spirit stone. A startled cry rang out, sending waves of shock through the gathered cultivators. Han Li's expression changed as well. In sheer spiritual power, a single high-grade spirit stone was only equivalent to about 100 mid-grade spirit stones. Yet in reality, 100 mid-grade spirit stones were far less valuable. A single high-grade spirit stone could easily cost over 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones and was almost never seen on the market. The reason was simple: high-grade spirit stone veins were easily detected and had long since been exhausted. The few that still existed were usually found deep within the very depths of mid-grade spirit stone mines. Unfortunately, many ancient and powerful spell formations and restrictions required high-grade spirit stones to function. Even ordinary formations would be significantly strengthened when activated with such stones. Furthermore, a high-grade spirit stone could provide a nascent soul cultivator with an enormous amount of spiritual energy. As a result, their value was staggering, and they had nearly vanished entirely from the heavenly south. As for the legendary peak-grade spirit stones, they had disappeared long before the end of antiquity, and now existed only in myths. Han Li's heart burned with fervor as he watched Wang Tiangu solemnly place the metal attribute high-grade spirit stone at the very center of the formation. He had slain many cultivators in his life, yet he had never once obtained such a treasure. Even attempting to purchase one in a market city would have been futile. High-grade spirit stones were hoarded exclusively by major sects reserved for moments of dire necessity. Now that the Ghost Spirit sect had produced one, it was clear how seriously they regarded this matter. It also explained why the Devilfall medallions were being sold at such exorbitant prices. After placing the spirit stone, Wang Tiangu returned to the side of the middle-aged elder and whispered a few words. The elder nodded, then ordered the Ghost Spirit sect disciples to withdraw from the formation. As they did, each disciple produced a faint yellow formation flag. With practiced precision, they raised the flags and swiftly arranged themselves into a strange configuration. At once the spell formation began to glow as if vast power were gathering within it. Could this man be the true sect master? Han Li thought, staring intently at the middle-aged cultivator. Otherwise, why would Wang Tiangu treat him with such deference, despite their similar cultivation levels? At that moment, dense black qi enveloped the middle-aged cultivator's body as he slowly rose into the air. Sweeping his gaze across the gathered crowd, he spoke in a firm voice. "I am Wang Tiansheng sect, master of the Ghost Spirit sect. I will not waste words. The method to enter Devilfall Valley has already been established. The spatial tiers have been compressed and stabilized, allowing passage into the valley. Our sect's formation masters have devoted immense effort to devising this transportation formation." He paused briefly before continuing. "However, this formation is somewhat unusual. It requires a metal attribute high-grade spirit stone to activate. Producing such a treasure was no small sacrifice for our sect, and thus the number of people we can transport is limited. Anyone in possession of a Devilfall medallion may use the formation to enter the valley regardless of affiliation. I hope fellow Taoists will not hold this against us. There are additional matters I must make clear. This is a one-way transportation formation. Because the destination is not precisely fixed, there exists a very small chance that someone may be teleported directly into a spatial tear. Should that occur, we can only say that their fortune was insufficient. The formation was developed in haste and carries inherent risks. Those unwilling to face such danger should refrain from using it." He then folded his arms and added coldly, "As for those without a Devilfall medallion, do not think of sneaking in. Once everyone with a medallion has been transported, this formation will be destroyed." Though his voice was not loud, every word rang clearly at the valley entrance. For a moment, murmurs rippled through the crowd as cultivators whispered among themselves or transmitted messages in secret. Suddenly, a youthful voice sounded from within the forest, tinged with doubt. "If we enter using this transportation formation, how are we to leave? Will your esteemed sect establish another formation within the valley?" Many cultivators nodded in agreement. Han Li, however, let out a cold smile. Wang Tiansheng replied without emotion, "There is no need for fellow Taoists to worry. From what I know, Devilfall Valley contains many ancient restrictions that hinder entry. But there should be little resistance when leaving. There may even be intact ancient transportation formations within the valley itself. Should that be the case, departing will be a simple matter." After hearing the Ghost Spirit sect master mention the ancient teleportation formations, a few cultivators were visibly reassured, their expressions brightening, while others remained deeply skeptical. After all, very few truly understood the internal conditions of Devilfall Valley. To set everyone's mind at ease, Wang Tiansheng continued calmly, "I will have Quanzi and Elder Zhong cross first. Everyone else will follow afterward." With a casual wave of his arm, he gestured toward Wang Chan and Yan Ruyan. The silver-masked Wang Chan and Yan Ruyan stepped forward, walking toward the center of the spell formation and standing beside the mid-nascent soul old man. Once Wang Tiansheng gave the command, the surrounding ghost spirit sect disciples simultaneously lowered their formation flags. Instantly, arm-thick beams of multicolored light shot downward, striking various nodes of the spell formation. A deep humming sound echoed as the entire formation vibrated to life, while the spirit stones embedded around it burst forth with dazzling radiance. The sudden surge of power stirred the surrounding cultivators, yet Wang Tiansheng paid them little heed. Wang Tiangu then led 8 core formation cultivators toward the spell formation. Only then did the onlookers clearly realize that despite its enormous size, the formation was only capable of teleporting 3 individuals at a time. As a result, even the Ghost Spirit Sect cultivators had to be transported in successive batches. Seeing the Ghost Spirit Sect seize the initiative, many cultivators grew restless. Temptation stirred in their hearts, yet cultivators were nothing if not cautious. For a time, no one dared step forward, all wishing to observe the outcome first. Given the Ghost Spirit Sect's dubious reputation, even the slightest mishap could spell certain death. Hanley rose from the mound, standing upright to better observe the unfolding events. Upon witnessing the crowd's hesitation, Wang Tianxing let out a cold laugh and raised his arms toward the sky. The air above trembled subtly, and the surrounding valley gradually fell into an oppressive silence. Despite the tense atmosphere, the Mulan spell warriors were the first to act. More than 10 of them silently advanced toward the massive formation behind the scholarly divine sage Zhong and spell warrior Le. A flicker of black qi briefly crossed Wang Tiansheng's face before vanishing without a trace. Wei Wuya, ever taciturn, calmly turned to face Elder Zhong, his expression unreadable. Before the Mulan spell warriors entered the formation, Elder Zhong flicked his sleeve, sending more than 10 streaks of azure light soaring through the air. Wang Tiansheng expressionlessly raised his hand, catching them one by one. As the light faded, dozens of Devilfall medallions were revealed. Though Wang Tiansheng had not participated in the border war, he was well aware of divine sage Zhong's identity. Taking a measured breath, he said slowly, "Very well. The quantity is sufficient. Please proceed." Elder Zhong nodded. Several spell warriors stepped forward and entered the formation. At once, the Ghost Spirit Sect disciples hovering in the air activated the formation, sending the Mulan into Devilfall Valley in groups of 3. When Elder Zhong himself stepped into the formation, he glanced at Wei Wuya and said casually, "If the destination of this teleportation formation is truly random, then it would be best if your sect's disciples do not encounter us." Wei Wuya showed no fear as he met the Mulan divine sage's gaze. How could such a convenient outcome exist in this world? If it does occur, then it must simply be the will of the heavens. The will of the heavens. Divine sage Zhong let out a cold chuckle. So be it. In a flash of white light, he vanished together with 2 of his juniors. Wang Tiansheng stared briefly at the now empty spell formation, a trace of displeasure flickering across his face. Once the other cultivators saw that the Mulan had successfully used the formation without incident, they could no longer remain composed. One after another, they took out their Devilfall medallions and stepped toward the formation. Within just a few minutes, the formation flashed repeatedly, sending more than 300 cultivators into Devilfall Valley, nearly a quarter of the total medallion holders. Meanwhile, the high-grade spirit stone at the formation center had already begun to dim, its spiritual power nearly depleted. Han Li watched all of this with an indifferent expression, silently memorizing the identities of every cultivator who entered the valley. Suddenly, his gaze shifted to 6 green-robed cultivators approaching the formation. Leading them was Dongmen Tu, the controlling spirit sect's grand elder, someone Han Li held no great fondness for. Though they had never clashed directly, Dongmen Tu's involvement in dealing with the Mulan spy Gu Shuangpu had left Han Li wary. Still, given the disparity in strength, Han Li did not consider him a serious threat. At that moment, the 5 green-robed cultivators escorting Dongmen Tu simultaneously turned their heads toward Han Li. At the same time, Han Li's assimilated second nascent soul violently stirred within him. Had he not reacted, instantly focusing his will and forcefully suppressing it with his spiritual sense, it might have manifested on its own. Han Li immediately extended his spiritual sense to carefully examine the 5 green-robed cultivators. Elemental spirit nascents. The aura they gave off was eerily similar to that of his second nascent soul. Narrowing his eyes, Han Li scrutinized them closely, unable to discern their origins. Dongmen Tu also noticed his escort's strange reaction. He quickly turned his gaze toward Han Li, their eyes meeting briefly. A flicker of astonishment crossed Dongmen Tu's face, but it vanished just as quickly. He turned away as though nothing had happened and continued walking toward the spell formation. Wang Tiangu, meanwhile, looked visibly shaken upon seeing Dongmen Tu accompanied by 5 additional nascent soul cultivators. Wei Wuya carefully examined the 5 green-robed figures as well, his expression growing contemplative. Fixing his gaze on them, Wang Tiansheng spoke in a low voice. "Brother Dongmen, these fellow Taoists are quite unfamiliar. Might you introduce them?" With a crafty smile, Dongmen Tu replied casually, "Once the matters of Devilfall Valley are concluded, I will be happy to do so." Wang Tiansheng cursed inwardly, knowing full well that Dongmen Tu had no intention of telling the truth. Unwilling to dwell on the matter, he ordered his disciples to teleport the 6 nascent soul cultivators in 2 batches. At the instant Dongmen Tu was teleported away, he cast a fleeting glance at Han Li, his eyes brimming with malice. Though the gesture was subtle, Han Li caught it clearly with his spiritual sense. It seemed Dongmen Tu had indeed sensed the spirit nascent within him. This realization weighed heavily on Han Li's mind. With the elemental spirit nascents accompanying Dongmen Tu, the man had suddenly become a formidable adversary. Unfortunately, Han Li's wood spirit nascent had yet to be fully assimilated. It seemed he would need to tread with far greater caution once inside the valley. Soon after Dongmen Tu departed, another group of 3 stepped forward. Han Li could not help but wear a wry smile upon recognizing them: Senior Marshal Brother Cheng and 2 other nascent soul cultivators whose lifespans were nearing their end. Han Li sighed softly as he watched the trio vanish into the teleportation light. His gaze then shifted back to the high-grade spirit stone at the formation's center. It had grown almost entirely dull. A glint flashed in Han Li's eyes. Without further hesitation, he rose into the air, streaking forward in a trail of azure light. He landed before the formation and tossed his Devilfall medallion toward Wang Tiansheng. Wei Wuya's figure blurred and he appeared 100 meters away from Han Li. "Fellow Taoist Han, you have arrived as well. With your youth and limitless potential, there is little need for you to brave such danger." Han Li replied calmly, "Many thanks for your concern, Brother Wei. However, there is a matter that compels me to enter Devilfall Valley." Wei Wuya frowned, studying Han Li for a moment before his expression darkened. "Since fellow Taoist Han has made his decision, I will say no more. I only hope that our objectives do not conflict." With that, Wei Wuya vanished in a blur, returning to his original position. Seeing Wei Wuya address this young cultivator with such gravity, how could Wang Tiansheng fail to realize Han Li's identity? Maintaining a composed exterior, he examined Han Li closely, shock-churning in his heart. He had first heard of Han Li years ago, when Wang Chan suffered a crushing defeat that allowed Han Li, then merely at the foundation establishment stage, to escape. After many years, Han Li had re-emerged in the heavenly south as a nascent soul cultivator, once again becoming entangled in deep enmity with the ghost spirit sect and slipping through their grasp. Following the events of the Mulan Plains, Han Li's reputation had soared. His astonishing feats elevated him to a status comparable to the three great Heavenly South cultivators. When Wang Tiansheng learned of this, he had taken the matter very seriously, committing Han Li's name to memory. Now standing before him, Han Li revealed nothing. He stood calmly at the center of the formation, eyes closed, expression placid, leaving not the slightest opening. Wang Tiansheng's heart trembled, a faint sense of unease creeping in. Still, he forced himself to remain composed. With a casual wave of his hand, he ordered the disciples aloft to activate the formation. Amid a series of low hums, Han Li vanished. After passing through several consecutive teleportations, Han Li felt a brief wave of dizziness. When his senses stabilized, he opened his eyes and began surveying his surroundings. He found himself beside a partially collapsed stone cliff, surrounded by wild grass that rose to half a man's height. In the distance stretched a chain of low, unbroken hills. Not a single person was in sight. This was hardly surprising. Devilfall Valley spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Unless two cultivators were teleported together, encountering another would be exceedingly difficult. Yet when Han Li turned his head to survey the area more carefully, his expression suddenly shifted, tinged with unmistakable astonishment. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.